Hello, and welcome to the final reading of Nightbooks by J.A. White, read with permission from HarperCollins Publishers. I say final reading because it's the last chapter of this book today, and we will be finished. So it's coming to it came to an exciting conclusion yesterday with Aunt Gris turning into a mound of sugar. So we will just review a little bit and then we'll finish out the book. So yesterday, Natasha, as you can remember, was trying to run from Aunt Gris, but she doesn't get far. Yasmin and Alex don't wait to see what happens as Aunt Gris pounces on Natasha, but they do hear a short scream of pain followed by horrible crunching sounds and then nothing at all. They burst out of the house into the dark forest and start running as fast as they can. And of course, the unicorns are still chasing them, but they're running, running, running. Suddenly, they hear a voice that's kind of echoing magically in the forest, and it is Aunt Gris chasing them. Lenore comes to the rescue. She manages to cast a last spell to help Alex and Yasmin escape. She puts up kind of like an invisible wall, so as Aunt Gris leaps into the hallway, she crashes into that invisible barrier. Aunt Gris, but then she runs her one of her candy cane fingernails along the invisible barrier. Lenore can't hold her back any longer as she's about to collapse from exhaustion, and then Lenore vanishes. So Aunt Gris continues to chase. Alex has a plan which involves getting them to the basement of the apartment. They do that. They take the elevator down. Once there, Alec sees Old Smoky, the boiler, where flames are roaring, so the boiler is running. He begins to read the first sentences of stories from his nightbooks, from one of his nightbooks, and these are failed stories that he never finished or he threw away. But they were like a spell for Alex, and Aunt Gris kind of followed them as though she were in a trance, so kind of like a bread trail, like Alex is leading her. He led her straight to Old Smoky, and then right as he got to the boiler door, he threw his nightbook into the flames. Aunt Gris screams in horror, leaping across the floor, knocking Alex out of the way as she stuck her candy cane hands, into the raging heat to try to get the nightbook. Then Yasmin shoves her in from behind. The witch falls into the flames, and Alex slams the boiler door shut. Finally, there is a sound like rice pouring into a bowl, and the witch was gone. All that was left was the smell of burned candy apples. And inside the boiler, nothing was left, like I said before, but a mound of sugar and 4 candy-caned fingers. They were still wrapped around the remains of Alex's nightbooks. So, we are on chapter 22 today, right? And it is called The Gift. Let me get my glasses here. It had been unusually hot all May, and that Saturday was no exception. By the time Yasmin arrived at the park, Alex's favorite t-shirt was stuck to his back. "Sorry I'm late," Yasmin said, taking a seat next to him on the bench. She was holding a small paper bag in her hands. "I had to finish something up." After a few months of home-cooked meals, the color had finally returned to Yasmin's skin. When she smiled, her cheeks looked healthy and full. "That's okay," Alex said. "I was just sitting here pondering." "New story?" "No," he said. "I mean, yes. I'm working on something. A novel, actually. But mostly, I was thinking how weird it was. My brother yelled at me this morning for something so stupid it's not even worth getting into, and I'm ecstatic about it. For months, my family has been walking around on eggshells, being so nice to me, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Now, I feel like things are finally returning to normal." "I know what you mean," Yasmin said. "The other day, my mom tore into me for texting Claire when I was supposed to be doing my homework, and I could have hugged her." Yasmin and Alex were at the center of a mystery that had captivated the entire world. 58 confused children, including Yasmin's friends, Claire, Eli, and little Juan, had been found wandering the halls of Bayside Apartments. They recalled their names and everything about their lives up until the moment they entered the apartment 4E, but nothing past that. Even more extraordinary, some of the children had been missing for a decade or more and hadn't seemed to age in the intervening years. There was talk of aliens and government conspiracies, but for the families who had finally been reunited after years of grief, there was only one explanation: miracle. Yasmin and Alex could have shed a considerable amount of light on the subject. They might have told authorities how the missing children hadn't aged because they had been frozen as figurines. They could have also explained how the death of the witch who owned the apartment broke the curse and brought the children back to life. Unfortunately, Yasmin and Alex didn't think anyone would believe them, especially since the apartment had reverted back to a completely non-magical form. And so they had pretended to lose their memories along with everyone else. It was easier that way. "I made you something," Yasmin said, handing Alex the paper bag in her hands. "I hope you like it." "Thanks," Alex said, touched. He felt bad that he didn't have anything to give her in return, but he knew that would change soon. He had been saving up for tickets to a Mets game. Inside the bag was a simple composition book. Yasmin had covered it with pictures of everything that Alex loved: monsters and aliens, creepy clowns and killer dolls, spooky old houses, and abandoned amusement parks. The only thing missing was witches. Alex was okay with that. "It's sad that you lost all your night books," Yasmin said. "I figured you could write some new stories in this one." "It's perfect," Alex said, his face growing warm. "It's the nicest gift anyone ever gave me." "Don't get all mushy," Yasmin said, getting to her feet. "Besides, I didn't come here just for you. Where is she?" Alex nodded toward a large elm tree. "Over there in the shade," he said. "I guess after all those years indoors, she still hasn't gotten used to the sun." Lenore was lying in a comfortable spot at the base of the tree. Yasmin and Alex took turns taking care of her, though they suspected that she was happiest when the three of them were together. The orange cat glanced in their direction now. "I'm glad to see you, but not quite glad enough to walk all the way over there." Yasmin checked her watch and gasped in surprise. "I gotta run," she said. "My parents freak out if I'm like a minute late." "Do you really like your present?" "I love it." "Don't just love it," she said. "Use it." After Yasmin and Lenore left, Alex headed home, flipping through his new nightbook. The empty pages brimmed with possibility. What if... Alex broke into a run. He had an idea for a new story, and he couldn't wait to get home and start writing. And that is the end, a very short chapter, of Nightbooks by J.A. White. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining in throughout this story, for sharing this story with me. Hopefully, that'll be it for this year, for this school year. But hopefully next fall we can do something fun like this again. Thanks again for listening in every day. I appreciate that so much. Have a great afternoon, everyone.